to Let's Play Gran Turismo 3, episode 108. And for this segment, since we have now done pretty much all but one championship in this game up to this point, I've now decided for this I am going to do the cleanups right before we begin the final championship of this game, which of course, as many of you probably know, unsurprisingly, is Formula GT. And as you may have noticed down there, I have 1.5 million credits less from what I had previously. And well, the reason for that is because I bought both of these. And of course, I am going to show you how I did that, because I do have another virtual memory card. So I basically saved the game after the Polyphony Digital Cup on my other card slot, and basically what I did was, as well, I bought both of these. So I basically bought both the Subaru Impreza and the Mazda RX-7 LM race cars respectively for 750,000 credits, which of course if you add both of those up is equivalent to 1.5 million. Or 1.5 million credits, I should say. So that's basically how I bought both of those things, and well, the reason why I decided to get both of these in my garage as well, because primarily one of them I've not managed to race against in this game, so I figured the best option I had was to primarily just buy the cars from after I won the Amateur Dream Car Championship thing twice. And also the cars I used for that were the Mazda 787B and the Nissan R390. And let me tell you, it was not easy for me to get the RX-7. I literally had to click on the trophy right in the centre just to get it. Trust me, it wasn't easy. And now, of course, we are going to get started with our cleanup races, because I counted up how many races I need to do overall, and I will show you how many races I need to clean up. I'll just head along here. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, yeah, a total of 24 races that I need to clean up. And officially, well, because the beginner Vits races first, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we've got Tokyo and Trial Mountain to clean up, and I'm hopeful in saying that I do have enough tuning to do both of these events. Because, well, I have the turbo one. And just gonna check, yep, everything appears to be in order. Got around about 250 horsepower, which should be enough for me to win both of these events, since I have the Stage 2 turbo. And yeah, let's do it. It is time for what will probably be the first of many cleanup races yet to come in this game. And I have my fingers crossed that I also have. And here's to also keeping my fingers crossed that I will, of course, manage to hopefully clean all of these up. And well, the reason why I chose to use the pink Vits is simply because, well, it's the only Vits / Yaris that I officially have in my garage, because Even though I did win another Yaris from this, or Vitz if you live in America. Primarily, I did not keep them because neither of them were pink. And that's the reason why I'm using this one. It's also because technically it's the only car I can officially use to ascertain a possible entry into this event. And my god, my Stage 2 Turbo is already working wonders for me. Because I am nearly 2 seconds clear of the nearest Euro Edition Yaris. Although, then again, the primary objective is to make the racing easier by having the Stage 2 Turbo, and that's exactly what I've done up to this point. I would say, as a result of that, I've probably managed to work wonders for myself. Although then again, because this is the beginner league, rubber banding in regards to the AI is still pretty close. But again, I think originally I finished 3rd in both of these events. And well, the reason why I don't have the transmission on is simply because, well, I don't need it. Because we are not going to test course for either of these races. Even though I am certain that at some point in the future, test course will become more or less the epitome of what I think will probably be the most difficult races for me to sweep up. So I think coming into this we were 93.5% complete following the Polyphony Digital Cup, and of course my win ratio at the present time has still not moved up, even though I would imagine it's only a matter of time before it does. Well, hopefully so that it does, but there is that. And ultimately, overall, I would say at the moment I'm actually doing better than I thought I was going to do. I mean, these AI are still keeping up with me, because they're staying within like 3 seconds, and there goes the oil pressure. Well, guess I am going to have to change the oil before we get down to the professional Vitz race, because oddly enough I did not sweep up all too often. Even though I did win 4 out of 5 races, I just didn't have the tyres needed to officially win the race. And I pretty much dominated that race once I went up to the front, because I won by 2.5 seconds in that race. So yeah, I'm not really gonna bother too much with the results. All that matters is that I win. And also, don't need to save a replay because I've already decided on what thumbnail exactly I'm using. And many of you up to this point will have expected me to change the oil, because, well, obviously my oil light is red, but I've decided I'll do this first, and then I'll change the oil. Regardless of how dirty this thing really is. Because my car pretty dodgy at the moment. But oddly enough, it's always nice to get the Didywike out of the way first, and then once I have done that, I can focus on the cleaner work. So I may not have washed this car before I took my clickbait replay, but again, that's okay, because, but ultimately overall, that's okay, because realistically, I don't anticipate this thing to be clean. And even though I did not check my completion percentage before I started this, I am pretty certain that from the Polyphony Digital Cup, which was the previous event I did, I was pretty sure that my completion ratio was 93.5%. I'm pretty sure it was that. Now, I cannot be certain of what my completion ratio will be after this. But one thing I can assure you of is that my completion ratio will definitely be higher by the time I've done this event than it can. By the time I've cleaned up all these races compared to where I am now, because I would imagine with this I'm only just about probably 94% complete by now. Because I still have many more races that need to be sweeped. Ultimately. Also, furthermore, this thing hasn't necessarily gone to waste because, well, I've driven over 230 miles in this thing. Because, well, I've driven over 235 miles with this thing by now. Or just about 235 miles, I would think. And furthermore, yes, the thumbnail that I chose for part 1 of the cleanup races does of course contain the pink bits because, well, I too have to do it for internet memes. Even though many of you only know this from the likes of YouTubers Rhino GT4 and Jimmy Broadbent. As of course uploaded by Thunder THR, who was responsible for creating it. Considering this is basically a meme that is now 10 years old, because this meme basically goes all the way back to 2011, when this meme was first formed, and officially, the pink Vitz has emerged above the other models of the Toyota Vitz. And I am now 10 grand richer. And don't really care about the race results because I do want to show you this. And, oh, okay. Well, hasn't really changed too much, only 93.7%, but again, that does prove, of course, that you need to actually win all of the races to officially get yourself up to that, 100% completion. And again, because I don't have to drive the Vitz again until we get down to the professional league, I think now probably is the right time for me to service it. So, just gonna give this thing a scrub. I'm also gonna change the oil, just so that it's in reasonable enough condition by the time we get to the professional league. And yes, I am going to switch over to my Beetle, because we have another race that we need to do it. Oh, okay. And I cannot afford the carbon drive shaft or install it. Okay, never mind. I thought I could maybe do something about it, but apparently not. Unfortunately. And of course, I'm not going to put on the Stage 3 engine because, well, I think my car is just going to be dragging too much, so I think instead I'm going to put on full engine balancing, and I think whilst I'm here I'm also going to put on Stage 2 with you know what, fuck it, let's do all 3 stages. Because it is now time for us to get through our 3rd cleanup race, which is Task Course. And will probably also be the first of probably many Task Course races we need to clean up. So these are the only cars eligible to making an entry to this event doable, and I'm also pretty sure that with the tuning I have now, I will be able to beat the cup cars here at Task Course, even though I am going to need some extra speed. So just going to head up here, put on the full racing transmission. Don't really think I need to focus on anything else in the drivetrain. Got all the engine tuning I need. Don't really think I need any sport brakes because, well, we're basically going flat out all the way. And all I really need to do now is just adjust the speed. Yeah, that should do it. And now, let's go to Task Course for what will probably be the first of many times in the cleanup sessions. And this time, I won't clear yes. I am positive in saying that this time, I will win a Task Course because of the tuning that I now have installed to this car. And I'm also pretty sure that I will have enough speed to prove, of course, that I can win this event. And I think, as far as I know, the racing transmission also makes this a 6-speed as well. And wow, I am already gaining on the lead. A little bit of contact there with one of the cup cars, but you can clearly see the benefits that I have very much showcased as a result of myself putting on the additional tuning which I did not have this car originally. So I would say I've probably got enough tuning on the motor to say that I have a much more powerful engine compared to what I had originally when I did this event, and I'm more or less confident that this time I can more or less win the race. Although oddly enough, of course, I'm not really winning it by that much. I'm more or less just staying on par with what I expected to have. And even though I'm not necessarily pulling away from the AI, I'm definitely benefiting. I can definitely say I'm benefiting from putting the additional speed on this thing, because if I didn't, then my gearing ratio would have probably remained unchangeable. Fortunately, however, that is not the case, and furthermore, I'm hopeful in saying that this is where I will win. Although then again, I don't want to become too complacent over victory too soon, because I'm pretty sure this AI probably will get caught up in the draft eventually that I am probably creating. And even though there might be some dirty air, I'm pretty sure they will try their best to overtake me, because they're not lagging too much in terms of speed. but I'm hopeful in saying that I have enough of an interval to say that this engine has had pretty much all the tuning it needs to effectively win this race. I knew test course was going to be a toughie going in, but depending on knowing if I can actually win the race going out, I'm pretty sure I can, but again, we'll just have to wait and see if the driver is competent enough to stay off the walls and stick to the track surface. I mean, I'm pretty sure my engine definitely has more than enough horsepower to win the race, but it just depends on knowing, of course, if the driver himself feels like he can win. And ironically enough, I would say I am just about confident enough to claim that I probably will win this race. Also because, well, unfortunately, I don't think there's any other events I can do with the Beetle after this one. So I think this event will more or less be the swan song for the car that I started with in this game, the Beetle. Considering I have, of course, been playing this game for nearly 5 months. Considering this was notably the car that I started this game with back in May. Oddly enough, I probably would say this is a suitable location to give this thing the swan song. Because this car has definitely had its fair share of ups and downs throughout this game. But oddly enough, I must admit, this thing really has become an ally to me. Because of how many races it's managed, because of how many races I've driven in it, and also because of how much I've managed to accomplish since the start of the game. So, you know, that must be said. Anyways, I and don't have to wait for everyone else to finish because, well, they're pretty much in a pack amongst themselves. And in the end, 1 by 1.2 seconds. So, just enough speed to separate myself from the pack. Or at least give myself enough of a distance to pull away from the pack. So 1.2 seconds over black, red finished in third, then it was silver, ahead of yellow, and blue finished in last. So pretty competitive race amongst the AI if I'm being completely honest. So you know, that's always good to hear. And I think as far as I know that's all of the beginner league races, and yes it is. And so, in the end of that, we are now 93.8% complete, so moved up by 0.3% after the beginner league, and well, just because this thing deserves a swan song, I'm gonna give this thing a wash, and I'm also gonna change the oil as well, because that cannot be looking too good. But again, this thing has under 280 horsepower, and I've driven 224 kilometers in this thing, which I think is about 127 miles. And now we are going to move onwards to the Amateur League. And of course, I have decided I know exactly which car it is I'm using next. And that car is the Ford Mustang. And why? Well, because I want to. Well, just because I want to check through the tuning on this thing. I think that's something I probably should do. Don't think I need any major tuning. Certainly don't need any exhaust tuning. Just checking through the upgrades that I have. And, oh, yeah. this thing is natural aspiration. Well, I'd actually change it over to the racing slicks. And well, just because I want to, I'm going to put stage 3 reduction on this thing. Because it is time for us to move onwards to the Amateur League. And by God, we have quite a few races we need to sweep up. So, let's head over to the Japanese Championship, as of which the 2 races we need to sweep up are Route 11 and Tokyo. And I'm hopeful in saying that I can do both of these using the Mustang, because I like to set my trademark. And also because, well, there are no restrictions towards me using this thing. And I'm pretty sure I have enough horsepower to win, but just because I want to get just that little bit more grip from the tyres, I'm going to switch over to the racing slicks. So, let's do this. Let's get on with the sweep-up sessions of the Amateur League. So we have to go 3 laps around each of these circuits. And what's even better is the fact in saying that I am doing this in what I probably consider to be my favourite model of Mustang, as well as my favourite generation. And oddly enough, no Honda NSXs in this field, so that pretty much makes my job even easier. As which... oh shit! I did not mean to do that. His AI, as I would have anticipated, they are getting aggressive. They are getting aggressive. And I've also just remembered this thing is rear-wheel drive. Which means, of course, that for something which basically looks like a race car, the back end can still tend to step out a lot, or the rear end, I should say, of the car. Because this thing is very much a clunk of oversteer. As you can see by pure example with the rear steer car. And well, oddly enough, this thing does have a long 4th gear, must be said. Although then again, of course, it's not necessarily the way the transmission is set up that really kills what exactly this car is truly capable of. Because overall, I still think this car looks amazing. Because this car is technically my favourite generation of Mustang, and furthermore, because this car has also been tuned by SVT, which I think, as far as I know, is basically to America what... Considering under many cases, I think SVT is basically America's alternative to Cosworth, which is us. Because Cosworth is basically Ford's powerhouse in the UK. Ultimately, in the US, that's basically what SVT is. It's basically a tuning house for Ford performance cars, and that's exactly what this thing is. And like the Ford trucks, this thing is built for tough. Even though I probably said that with a quite dreadful impression. Although at least I can say I did that one better than I would do a Sean Connery impression. And I'm also pretty sure that I will have to service this thing once I'm done with these races. I mean, I may not necessarily be getting that much richer, but again, I can clearly see the benefits of how much more tuning this thing has on it in comparison to the AI. And even though I could have used one of my race cars for this, the truth is, I've decided I'm going to leave those until we officially get down to, until we officially get down to the later portions. Of the clean-up races in the Amateur League. Considering I would imagine the Professional League races are probably going to take longer to sweep up as far as I know. Considering this is basically a tuned muscle car with a V8 motor. At least I think this thing has a V8. Well, most muscle cars basically have V8s, but this was technically the generation of when the muscle car was revived following the 73 oil crisis, which ultimately killed what many original muscle cars looked like during the so-called horsepower wars, which were, I must say, about as ongoing in America at the time as probably the Vietnam War. Because America did have quite a lot of involvement in Vietnam. And there have also been many great movies about made about the Americans winning certain battles in the Vietnam War. One of the main ones I can think of is Full Metal Jacket. Arguably one of the most courageous war films I've ever watched. But yeah, I think it was 1972 when the horsepower wars had originally ended, and I don't think it was until... when was it? And I don't think it was until, like... I think 1991, when the muscle car had officially started to see its revival years. It was a similar time to when they revived the convertibles as well, you know, with the Mazda RX-5 coming out in 89. And, yo, the RX-7 finished in second. Let's fucking go. And I won that race by 13 seconds. Then it was the Skyline in third, followed by the Evo 6, Impreza was fifth, and then at the back it was the Legacy. Subaru Legacy, I might add. And 7,500. And let's now move onwards to Tokyo, which I can more or less guarantee will probably be an easy win. As long as the Honda isn't in the field. And guess what? He is in the field. And well, because my voice is drying up, I'm going to take a sip of water before we get on with this. Figure that would be the important option. Alright, let's go. So, I've just realised it's already 11 o'clock. But again, the reason why I'm doing this today is simply because, well, this is probably the only day at the moment where I've actually got enough time to sweep up these races. At least one part of 3 races that I'm going to sweep up in this game. And I'm pretty sure that I will need to split this up into 3 parts because, well, those professional league races will be longer. And oddly enough, I don't think it matters, because even though the NSX at the moment is ahead, I'm hopeful in saying that I can manage to win this race for America. America! To those who understand me. And I am now ahead of the NSX. So this could be interesting, considering the AI do tend to have quite strong pace around Tokyo Reverse. The circuit has been more or less my Achilles heel compared to the AI on most occasions. But recently, I have been able to win in Tokyo when it matters most. At least on the reverse circuit, as far as I know. And furthermore, yes, I did just burp. But I'm not going to excuse myself because, well, I've already done that once. So, 1.8 seconds now to the NSX. Pretty sure this is going to be another easy win, regarding the circumstances that I'm working under. And I set more or less a 1 minute 56 time first lap, as we now head down the front stretch into this hairpin turn, and up the hill we go into this what's the word, complexity section of the course, which I think most of these are basically sharp corners, before we get onto the back stretch, which is basically up here. Yep, okay. I think I can confirm that I'm definitely going to win this race. I think I might as well confirm that up to this point I'm definitely going to win this race. Because I'm now over 2 seconds ahead of the Honda. So it really doesn't matter because I have tuning on this thing. Even then, of course, if I'm not dominating this race as much as I was dominating Route 11. The reason for that, well, rubber banding. Simple as that. I'm also pretty sure that once I've done all of these, my win ratio will have at least moved up to 86% by the time I'm done with this. And I'm predicting my win ratio overall, if I get lucky, will hopefully be 87% before this game is done. And the Honda's actually keeping up with me. He's not letting me extend by too much. Anyways, final lap. Yeah, 2.2 seconds. So, I would say the Honda's more or less keeping up with me, so not dominating this thing by too much, but again, I've certainly benefited from putting on the Stage 3 weight reduction. It's certainly one thing that I have managed to benefit from doing. Haven't really done any engine tuning to this thing. I've more or less just done weight reduction, and oddly enough, this thing is actually easier to drive compared to what it was before. Although I'm going to suspect the main reason for that is because of weight reduction. Because that is the thing. A thing that does very well exist, and is a lot more than just a conspiracy. I'm also pretty sure that I will have to give this thing some maintenance once I'm done here. So, through the last left-hander, this 90-degree left-hander, and that is that. And margin in the end, 3 seconds over the Honda NSX. The FD finished in 3rd, then it was the Impreza ahead of the Legacy, and at the back it was the Nissan. And furthermore, yes, the 300ZX was the only Nissan in this race, because the Skyline did not make an appearance. Unfortunately. Alright, so Now we just have to sweep up the races in the European Championship. And of course, for trademark purposes, I am sticking to the Mustang. And I'm not going to change anything, so let's just get through this. Since I'm pretty sure I can probably beat the Lotus in this event. So yeah, let's go for it. Regardless of how low dirty this thing looks at the moment. So yeah, this car is pretty dirty at the moment. I'm also pretty sure the oil light will probably turn red before this thing is over. And of course, my tuning, as I would have predicted, more or less working wonders for me, because I'm clearly benefiting from this. And already managed to pull ahead of the Zonda. I'm also now ahead of the Lotus Elise. Even though the Elise is clearly more nimble than me in terms of handling, and also in terms of body weight. Oh, fuck you! I'm hopeful in saying that I will manage to hopefully win this thing. Because previously, when I did this thing in my Vauxhall VX220, I was getting stonked quite badly. But ironically enough, I was still able to finish that race in second. And I'm hopeful in saying that this one will be a win. Because, well, if it isn't, then I'm going to go ape. And there goes my oil light. So, I think once I'm done with Rome Reverse, it's pretty clear that I will definitely need to give this thing some service. I mean, the Lotus previously in this race was literally stonking me, and now I would think with this race I'm only just keeping up with the Lotus because of the speed he's able to produce with his nimbleness. And even though 4th gear is pretty much insanely long compared to all the other gears this thing has, ironically enough, I'm actually not too flustered by this because I'm pretty sure this car still has the speed to win. And because these are the clean-up races, I figured it would only be suitable for me to use this thing for the regional events, for, you know, more or less the regional events, as I would call them. And also, don't need to do any of the American Championship races because I've already swept up all of those, so, and I got the corner. But it's fine, because I was more or less predicting I would end up winning this race anyway. It was more or less predictable that I was going to win this race anyway. Once we got down to outright pace, which ironically enough is one thing that, you know, this thing just has. Outright pace. To win. Because I'm now nearly 3 seconds clear of the Lotus. And I also have an edge on my face, which I probably need to scratch. Right, well, the Lotus is proving to be quicker than me through certain corners, but in terms of outright pace, I still have the overall advantage, so I would say I'm more or less going to win this race, the way things currently stand. And of course, I knew very well that my oil light was going to turn red before this thing was over. I knew very well that was going to happen. There was virtually no avoiding it, so I just decided to roll with it. Because I really didn't have any other choice. Because realistically I just didn't have any other choice. If I'm being completely honest. honest. Anyways, final lap. And I think I'm gonna win this thing. Oh, fuck me. I cut the corner again. Although then again, that's not necessarily because I was cheating, it's simply because of how heavy this thing is, and also, even though this thing is easier to drive than it was before, I did the professional race of NA Sports, which by the way was the other event I used this car for. But before that, I can safely say this thing, at the very least, is easier to drive now than it was more or less a couple of months ago. I think I said that correctly. Because, I mean, it's nearly been 2 months since I last drove this thing. And well, because I'm doing the clean-up sessions, this is more or less the clean-up sessions have more or less come into fruition. But again, I do promise you that I will do a Redux version of this game at some point in the future. Now, can't say exactly when for sure I'll do a clean-up version of this game, but I'm pretty sure there will definitely be a clean-up version of this game. And I set 2 laps within some 2 minutes, and in the end, 1 by 2 seconds over the Elise. Zonda was third, then we had the RDS4 ahead of the Peugeot, and then at the back it was the Mercedes. Apparently some heavyweights are doing worse off than others. Emma didn't dominate the race by too much. I mean, the Elise was definitely keeping up with me, in spite of the tuning I had on this thing. Guess that must be how much more nimbleness it has in comparison to me. And well, just because it's probably, you know, preferable for me to get this race done with before I service the car, I might as well just do it anyway. And so in this field we have, once again, the Paganis on the C12, along with the Audi S4, except for saying, of course, that the rest of our opponents are different for this race, because we have a Renault Clio, an Audi TT, and an Aston Martin DB7. And to anyone who is asking what exactly DB is short for, I think it's short for David Brown, because he was one of the company founders of Aston Martin. I think that's what DB is named after. I mean, the Aston Martin DB range has been going on for a very long time, but I'm pretty sure that DB is short for David Brown, because I'm pretty sure he was one of 2 founders of the Aston Martin automotive company. I think that's what it was. Why they have the DB range. Oh, okay. Well, Zonda's getting a little bit aggressive here. And he just sent it around the outside. Probably because he knew I was sliding and he was basically just going straight. But it's fine, because for the remaining races in this, I'm probably going to use the Audi TT for one of them, and then for the other ones, I'm basically just going to be using race cars. More or less. Although most of the races I have to sweep up are in the professional league anyway, so, you know, I would suppose that is something to be sure of. And I think this is now the 7th race I've done in this segment, so I have a feeling I could probably do a couple more before I officially put a conclusion to this, but I think up to this point, I would say that I'm more or less going to see myself probably move up to an 86% win ratio before this segment is done. And furthermore, yes, I've not officially put a number on the replay I've saved. In the comment I've just basically called it Cleanup Part 1, because these are the cleanup races. And furthermore, yes, I have decided to show these on knowing which cars I used more than once. And I can definitely confirm to you that my Ford Mustang SVT Cobra R has clearly proven to very much be the trademark that I have now set for more or less the integrity of what I plan on doing for probably the rest of the game on this very much minuscule channel that now has over 50 subscribers. And furthermore, yes, I am hugely grateful to everyone who has now given me 40 subscribers on my channel. Sorry, over 50 subscribers on my channel up to this point. I am hugely grateful. Yeah, and I'm also trying to book at the moment. Which, oddly enough, is one thing I'm not doing at the moment because, well, my eyes are burning. I'm also trying not to get emotional. But yeah, I mean, overall, I am hugely grateful to everyone who has officially put my channel up to 50 subscribers, and I'm hopeful in soon that sooner or later I can eclipse 100. At least before the end of next year if I get lucky. Guess we'll just have to wait and see how popular this channel becomes, but I'm certainly not predicting I'll hit 1,000 anytime soon, because, well, I think at the moment that's a bit of a lost cause, but I think I probably do have the power to eventually put 10 games under my belt on this channel, and hopefully if it's possible, sooner or later, within hopefully the next 7 years, I might be able to eclipse 1,000 subs if I'm lucky. And 2.6 seconds, the margin to the Zonda. Clio finished in third, then it was the Aston Martin, followed by the Audi S4, and then at the back it was the TT. And another 7.5 grand for winning. We are now up to 4,585,000 credits. And is that all of them? Yes, it is. And as for the next one, well, I've already decided on which car I'm using. And no, it is not going to be the Astra or the CLK. I might as well make that perfectly clear. So, in the end of that, we are now 94.6% complete. Just pretty much shows how much higher the completion ratio is for the bigger leagues. And if I just scroll up here, pretty sure it's in here somewhere. Where is it? Here it is. I am going to use my Vauxhall Calibra for the DTM race. And well, just because I want to cheat a little, I'm going to put on engine tuning, just to give this thing the edge. And well, I don't think tyres matter too much, so I'm going to leave everything else the same. Why did I click on professional? But it's clearly amateur. And just got one race to sweep up in Tokyo, so let's do it. Let's sweep up Tokyo using the Calibra. Even though it says Calibra for some reason, I honestly don't know why. Yeah, I think I'm going to give this thing a little bit more on the rear, and also a little bit more on the front so that I'm not skidding as much, but yeah, let's do it. Oddly enough, I'm actually glad I did win this thing, because this thing revs up to 16,000 RPM on this V8 engine. And already I have quickly made my way up to the front. And also furthermore, I know I didn't mention this before I did the race, but the grid for this race is pretty much Noah's Ark. Because we were split 2 by 2 going into this. And I can safely say the Astra is definitely looking quicker up to this point. Although I'm pretty sure after this I'll more or less be a third into the races that I need to clean up, because I think this is already the 8th race I've done in 1 segment, and I'm pretty sure the professional league races will take longer than this. Guess I probably didn't need the engine tuning on, but again, I just put it on this thing because I figured I had to be cautious. And already, I'm definitely benefiting from that, because I am already 3.5 seconds clear of the Astra up to this point. So I think it's pretty much 2 by 2 up to this point, because I'm leading in the Calibra ahead of the Vauxhall Astra. Then I think it's the other Astra in third, followed by the 2 CLKs, and then I think at the back it's the other Calibra in this event. I think it's pretty much, suffice to say that I'm probably going to end up winning this event by a reasonable chunk, I might add. And many of you are probably going to be saying to me, why have I not used any of my F1 cars yet? And well, the reason for that is because, well, I'm saving most of those for the professional league. So I decided I was going to do variety first on my car choices for these sweep-up races, and then once we get down to the professional league, with the exception of the test course races, which I will of course be using both of my prototypes for, and yes, I did say both of them, not just the master. Ultimately, I can definitely see why exactly I am benefiting from putting on the engine tuning. Because even though the other one at the moment is doing quite dreadful, at the moment at least, I am managing to give this thing a chance, and oddly enough, the chance I've taken on this thing is actually benefiting me, because I am leading this thing. And yes, I am stepping on the brakes this time, so I do not come into contact with the outside pavement, and I'm pretty sure that is a pavement on that right hand side, not the wall. So, a 16, so more or less a 16,000 RPM engine of a Vauxhall Calibra is officially going to win in Tokyo. Even though if you live anywhere else in the world it's known as the Opel Calibra. Although realistically there's no difference between the two, it's just different, you know, marketing name. And the other one finished 10 seconds behind me. But at the very least, I was still able to give this thing a win, which is precisely what I set out to do. So, I gave this thing a victory in the end, even then of course if the other one did dreadfully. And we get 10 grand from winning this. So, let's move on. So, what do we have left? Okay, so we've got GT All Stars, Tourist Trophy, the Type R meeting, probably have to use my NSX Type R for those, and we have the Dream Car Championship. Well, I think I'll do 3 more races before I conclude this, because I think up to this point I've now sweeped up... yeah, I've now sweeped up 8 races in this, and I think now is probably going to be the time for me to use one of my prototypes. And as of which, for test course, the car I'm going to use is the Mazda 787B. Why? Because I want to. And just because test course is the first race, I'm just going to get this over with. And I'm also going to put on racing slick tyres as well, because I have a feeling that too will probably be mandatory. Almost made the same mistake twice. So let's head over to test course and see if we can turn that 4th position into a gold. And I'm pretty sure that I will, because, well, I'm using the 787B, and pretty evenly split. No, sorry, not evenly split. More or less JGTC cars in this championship, because we have the Toyota Castrol Toms Supra, the Honda Castrol Mugen NSX, the Honda Arta NSX, and the Toyota Super Autobacks Apex MRS, along with the Impreza rally car, which I'm pretty sure will finish in last. And well, I'm going to do the default strategy here, which is just go minimum downforce and also pretty much go max speed, because that is the only real strategy I need for test course. Also, don't be surprised if the volume of this rotary engine is clearly overwhelming my voice, because oddly enough, that's more or less what I've been anticipating throughout this game, for something like this to literally be as loud as it is. And furthermore, yes, I did go maximum speed on this thing, because, well, I figured that was the only way for me to not constantly hit the rev limiter. And already it looks like my strategy for this race has pretty much been decided, because, well, just look at where I am now. I've already pulled out an interval ahead of both the NSXs, and the reason for that is because, well, I used a prototype. I basically used the only setup that I think truly is the only way you can actually win here at Test Course. So yeah, don't be surprised if this car itself is clearly overwhelming. The sound of what my voice volume is at. Because I knew very well this was more or less what I would have anticipated. Going into this. And then, I think for the other race as well, I'm probably going to use one of the race cars that I did not use in the game originally. And then, once I've basically done that, I can just, you know, move on to doing everything else. And I'm pretty sure I will not be able to do this in 2 segments because I am certain that most of the professional league races will probably take me more or less over 30 minutes for me to record. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be able to do all of these in 1 segment. There's no way. So I think I'm going to do 3 more races after this one, and then once I've done those, ultimately, that is of course where I will very much be distinctively deciding on what exactly I will do for the remaining races. Emma, the reason why I chose the 787B is clearly because, well, this is the faster of the 2 prototypes that I have in my garage, and oddly enough, the JGTC cars at the moment, at least, you know, the 2 Hondas along with the Toyota Soup, those guys are really battling it out for the win. Sorry, the second. Why did I say the win? I was told the second. And as for me, I just basically won this race by using the only strategy I thought was going to win me this race. And oddly enough, considering the circumstances, I would say it already has won me this race. Because I'm just decimating the opposition in terms of my top speed because of the setup I used. I mean, that's like 250 miles an hour I did on that backstretch. I think that's what it is. Or somewhere about over 250 miles an hour down the backstretch. Even though I do gather more speed down the front stretch because, well, the bankings get lower as you get on the exit. Alright. Somehow, in spite of me touching the outside wall at the end of turn 2, somehow I still put in the fastest lap. I don't know how, but I still put in the fastest lap. Somehow. Alright, so more or less 19 seconds now to the Castro Mugen NSX, considering that is of course the car I used for Laguna Seca. And won with. Even though I did of course have to put on some engine tuning because I was, well, cautious, but again, I still think I would have won the event even if I didn't have even if I, you know, didn't have the engine tuning, because technically I was probably doing 4 times the length. And by the way, yes, my window wiper is actually moving. along with the rest of the car because of the speeds I'm generating. But anyways, what I basically did was I thought about using the Castrol Mugen NSX for Grand Valley, but I ultimately decided, because I was wanting to give myself something that would more or less give me the comfortable edge in terms of tyre mileage, that was the reason why I used the NSX, realistically. And it's also because, furthermore, it was the only JGTC NSX I'd not driven in this game. Although, ironically enough, up to this point, I would say things are going very well. And furthermore, yes, before I did start recording, I checked to see if my USB had enough space to do part 1 of the cleanup races. Unfortunately, in the end at least, it did. That is exactly why I'm currently where I am now. And I'm hopeful in saying that before the end of next week I will manage to finally complete this game. And that's a win. Although oddly enough, even on a track where I know for sure that I can control worn tyres, even at high speed these things are still difficult to control, in my honest opinion. I was not able to eclipse another new best lap time. So anyways, that's your finishing order for Test Course. Even though the Supra is still battling it out with the two Hondas. Yeah, well, might as well see how far back they were, you know, just because I want to. They were 31 seconds behind me, and it was the Sup that eventually beat both of the Hondas. And, well, not gonna wait for the rest of the field because, well, I just don't give a shit. And the prizes for money are raising higher and higher, unsurprisingly. So, next up we have Route 11, and I have learned, of course, from the mistake I made at Grand Valley, so I know for sure that's one mistake I'm not going to repeat again. And well, just because I want to, I'm going to use the Altezza for Route 11. Yeah, actually yeah. I am going to stick to the Altezza just because, well, I want to. And yeah, fuck it, I'll put on the racing slicks. And so, let's do this. Let's head to Route 11, where I need to convert the bronze into a gold, and also try and see if I can convert my silver at Grand Valley also into a gold. I also put on a turbo kit just in case. Don't think I need to do any major tuning up to this point. So, let's give this thing a go, and we will see how far up the order we get. Especially considering this thing is not anywhere near as fast as my Mazda was previously. And again, I just figured I'd drive this thing as a one-off for this race. since I figured if I get one race over with in the Altezza race car, then it basically means that I won't have to do this again, primarily. Although I still have to be careful with controlling this thing, because, well, that is something I do need to be wary of. And it's now pretty much Toyota versus Toyota. Altezza versus Soup. Who will win? Who will win the race and the down war? Whoa! Fucking hell. I did not expect the Loctite GTR to just dive up the inside of us. I was not expecting that to happen. Though I have noticed the Altezza is quite hard on tyres. At least, that is from what I can see on the front tyres. Also, furthermore, this thing is quite big, I might add. I really cannot see that well over where exactly the Soup currently is in comparison to me. Also, furthermore, for entertainment purposes, I do have to keep it interesting somehow. Oh, going for a dive. I was just about to say that as I went for the dive. But I really had to dive up the inside to get the Soup. Right in his forefront. Not necessarily the way I would usually race, but again, it's very much the way you have to race. It's more or less the name of the game against these AI. They would have more or less done the same thing to me as the Loctite GTR had proven. He has proven very well that is more or less the name of the game, and officially I now have a 2-second interval to the Supra as a result of myself going for the dive. You really have to have big balls to do it, and oddly enough, overall that's exactly what I think I had. I really did have the balls to say that I would do it. I really did have the balls to say that I would do it. Although, this thing is still pretty twitchy on the rear end. I have noticed this thing is pretty twitchy. But somehow the thing itself is still controllable. From what I can empathise. I'm only hoping that tyre wear will not be too much of a problem for this race. Oh fuck. Okay. Well, the Soup is still keeping up with me. He is not letting me run away with this one. And well, I just figured I'd use this car as a one-off for just this, you know, one event. I'm also pretty sure this will be a pretty long segment because, well, I've done more races than I anticipated I would. But again, at least I can say it's a reasonable enough start for me to get through. At least I can say it's more or less a, you know, reasonable spot for why exactly I chose this thing. I mean, I knew very well that tyre wear was going to be an issue. I also knew very well that coming into this, I also knew very well that there was going to be more or less separation distances for pretty much the rest of the field. And I just overrun this thing. But it's fine, because I still have enough of an interval to the soup. Even though this thing is still... Even though this thing is still pretty hard to control, because, well, I'm not using any drive rates, but somehow, ironically enough, this thing is still controllable. As underrated as that might sound, I still think in a way, this thing is controllable. Ow. Fuck you. Oh, fuck my ass. Why did I put my left side tyres on the curb? That was a bad idea. That was a very bad idea. Fucking hell. I have no idea how I managed to save it. So what I've established from this is that, well, curbs in rear steer cars are bad. Might as well make that abundantly clear. So what I've established from this is, well, curbs are bad for rear steer cars. Alright, anyways, final lap. And as I would have expected, the Calibra is in the pits along with the Evo 6. But it's fine, because I really don't care for what the rest of the finishing order is. As long as I can manage to win. And I would think in the end of this I probably will win this event. I would say victory up to this point is more or less on the cards, in spite of literally knowing how chungus big this thing really is. And furthermore, yes, I am dubbing this thing as being chungus big if you just look at it from a far away shot. It's also because, well, I decided for this I would go for variety before I would go for supremacy, which is very much the Formula GT cars dominating over all the other race cars. Well, except for the prototypes, because, well, there are the testicleless races. Anyways, through the final corner we go, and on the start, finish straight we are, and I also set a new best lap time. And win by 2.5 seconds over the Soup. Then it was the Loctite GTR in third, followed by the Castrol Mugen NSX, and then at the back we had the Vauxhall with the Mitsubishi. Don't see any point in waiting for them to finish, but anyways, another 25 grand for winning, and let's now move onwards to Grand Valley. And furthermore, I know exactly which car it is I'm going to use. And that is the most recent car I purchased. The Mazda RX-7 LM race car. And well, because I learned from the mistakes I made last time, I've discovered in order to win at Grand Valley, I need to have superior tyres. So I'm not going to mess around, I'm just going to say fuck it and go with the super slicks. That way, I will know for sure the victory will be mine. So, let's now head over to Grand Valley Reverse and correct the L into a dub. Oh, hello. We have the Viper in this field. Which actually makes this look pretty interesting. And well, because I have not raced against this car pretty much throughout the entirety of this game, I decided I would do the default choice and try and win it. And that's exactly what I basically did. On my other memory card, of course. Alright, here we go for 5 laps of Gran Valley. Hopefully, this will more or less be what exactly I need to do. I'm off to a pretty bad start, but again, that's okay because I have more or less the most superior tyres in the field. And because I'm on cold tyres at the moment, that's the reason why I'm not handling too well. But again, the other reason why I chose the Super Slicks is simply because, well, I've discovered this thing too can be pretty hard on racing tyres, so that's why I just said fuck it and went with the Super Slicks. And I think I was on the lines of the chicane there, as far as I know. I at least managed to keep it legal enough as far as I could tell. You know, I might also use this car for test course if I feel like it. Guess we'll just have to wait and see to be sure, but again, I am considering it. I am making that choice, you know, optional. Don't want to keep my choices completely locked up. Although I'm pretty sure that my money will not stay the same because, well, obviously I will, of course, have to basically upgrade the fuck out of my Audi TT just so I can win the next race, because that's literally what I have to do. Also, furthermore, I just noticed it is nearly midday. Guess that pretty much displays how long I've been doing this for, up to this point. Because this is already my 11th race of sweeping up. And I'm hopeful in saying that I have managed to keep my microphone on long enough just to keep this going with the contraflow. As far as I know. Don't know why I kept this thing in 4th gear. But I guess I just did. up to this point, I would say I am more or less going to win this race, because, well, I have the Stage 1 Turbo, which is probably all I really need, and I also have the Super Slick tyres on, which proves, of course, that I will be able to get to the end of the race regardless of what happens. Now, I could have been risky and went with the Super Slick strategy again, but I decided I wasn't going to do that, because I personally figured it wasn't worth it. As far as I could tell. Well, I'd actually consider using the Impreza for test course if I feel like it. You know, the test course race of the Amateur Dream Car Championship. Because, well, I basically sweeped all 7 races in the Professional Dream Car Championship. And some of you may not necessarily be accustomed to me just basically getting this car by default from basically winning it on my other memory card slot. But many others would probably think it's understandable, considering they haven't officially seen this car in the game pretty much all gameplay long, and I figured now, of course, was probably the right time for me to showcase it. And it's also because, furthermore, out of pretty much all the dream cars in this game, this one I would probably label as being the clear favourite. I would probably label this one as being at the top, followed by the Honda S2000, then it would be the Mitsubishi FTO, ahead of the Tommy Kyra, then I think after that it would be the Pretzel, and then at the bottom it would probably be the Altezza. So just going to do one more race after this, and then I'll close the segment off there, because I don't think my USB is capable enough of, you know, taping many more races, as far as I can tell. It's also because, furthermore, pretty much after about probably an hour and 7 minutes of recording, this thing basically just, you know, tends to, you know, stop recording altogether once it's been stopped. So, more or less keeping a clear interval to the Soup and the 2 Hondas up to this point. Well, the Soup, the NSX and the Viper up to this point. And I do not know who is at the back of the field. It's probably the Evo 6, but I don't know for sure. Oh wait, hold on. I don't think we have any rally cars in this race. No, it couldn't be. Okay, let me rethink. So we have 2 Honda NSXs, 1 Toyota Supra, 1 Dodge Viper. Yeah, it's got to be the Calibra. There's literally no other car I can think of that would stop in for tyres up to that point in the race. Well, besides the rally cars, of course, because, well, I have, of course, competed against those as well. But yeah, I'm happy to say that right before the final championship in this game that I have officially driven this car. And my god, what a machine this thing really is. And even though I won this thing in black, the truth is, I actually like this thing in black, because most of the things I have in my room are basically black anyway. At least most of the clothes I wear are black. You know, black underwear, black socks, black shirts. Alright, so it was pretty much the JGTC cars, or Super GT cars, dominating over the Viper, and as for the DTM, well, they were well behind the Super GT cars, as far as I know, in terms of overall mileage. Alright. Last race of part 1, or final race of part 1 I should say, and it takes place in Tourist Trophy. Which means of course there is only one car I can use, and that is the Audi TT once I found it. Here it is. My Amulet Red Audi TT. And now of course, I'm not going to mess about. I really need to upgrade the fuck out of this thing if I'm going to win it. Oh yeah, I cannot afford that. Anyways, if I'm going to win at Deep Forest, I literally need to upgrade the fuck out of this thing. So that's basically what I'm doing. And yep, my microphone is still switched on. And yeah, I'm just putting on all the drivetrain upgrades I can get as well. Figured those might be important. Just because I want to. You know, just to give this car... just to make this car feel like an easier ride to drive than it actually is. Now, I'm not gonna mess about, just gonna put on stage 3 because I'm pretty sure that my car needs to be tuned very much to fucking perfection. And yeah, fuck it, let's put on the racing slicks. And now we just have to do the remaining stages of weight reduction, considering this will probably be the only car that I've probably upgraded to the absolute RAM. Alright, so final race of part 1. And yep, all the other races I've done up to this point have been sweeped. So, here we are. Final race of the cleanup races, part 1. As of which I have now already done 11 of these, and this one will make it 12. And also going to adjust the speed a little bit. Honestly don't care for anything else. So let's just do this anyway and get this over with. Because I've pretty much upgraded this car to the max, more or less. Just so I can win this race. And yet I still continue to have trouble at the start. Probably because I haven't upgraded the suspension. Either that or this car is basically just prone to wheel spin. But again, all of this tuning is more than necessary for me to just win this one race, because I know very well that this one race is probably the one that will elude me the most. If I did not do as much tuning as I did. And this thing is still pretty tricky to drive. Probably because I don't have the customizable suspension on. Or fully customizable suspension on, I should say. Which is probably the main reason on why I'm struggling. to get a threshold on this thing. Well, I guess I should have put on the fully customizable suspension, and then wouldn't necessarily be doing this as much. But again, all of this tuning is necessary for me to win this race, because I'm only leading this by 1.3 seconds. And I'm pretty sure that if I make a mistake up to this point, I will not manage to win this race. Even though I did win the other 4 pretty easily, this one I was pretty much well off the pace compared to the AI. Which is why I did all the tuning as I did. In a way. So probably could have switched over to a fully customizable suspension just so I can actually control this thing, but again, I really don't think there would have been any more of a point on spending more money than I already did. Because I basically spent more than 100 grand just pretty much trying to make this thing easier to drive. And I think as far as I know, the fully customizable suspension probably would have been the choice to go for easier handling. But again, the truth is, I really don't care, because it's only one race I need to worry about, and then once I've done this one, I don't have to drive this car again, since this is the only car I can use for this event. And yes, I will of course be saving the game after this race, because, well, I think I've gone long enough to make as many races as I did in one segment. I think I've gone long enough by now for what I've already managed to accomplish up to this point, as far as I know. But anyways, this race is going to be a win. And I also set a new best lap time in the process. So even though I forgot to improve the handling on this thing, I still won this race by 1.5 seconds, which is all I really needed to do, realistically. And so, that race shall conclude this segment once I've had a look at my progress. Alright, so I sweeped up 12 races in this segment. And to start this off, I still have 3 races remaining in the Amateur League. And so, in the end of that, we are now 95.6% complete with the game overall, and yeah, my win ratio moved up to 86% finally. As we now have 324 wins in 376 starts. And so that will conclude this segment, and next time we will be getting on with part 2 of the cleanup races. So I shall see you then.